It all started with a sound I'll never forget. The sound of my fiancée's laugh. But this time, it wasn't the sweet, comforting laugh I had fallen in love with. No, this laugh was sharp, mocking, and cruel. And the worst part, it wasn't meant for me. Hi, my name is Daniel, and what I'm about to tell you still feels like something out of a twisted movie. It's the story of how the two people I trusted most, the woman I was going to marry and my best friend of over 10 years, stabbed me in the back. But it's also the story of how I didn't just walk away broken. Instead, I turned the tables in a way that left them speechless. If you've ever been betrayed, you'll understand the rage, the confusion, the burning need for justice. But if you stick with me until the end, you'll see how sometimes revenge doesn't come from screaming, fighting, or throwing punches. It comes from something far colder, something smarter. Let me take you back to the night it all began. It was a Friday evening. I came home from work earlier than usual. I had planned to surprise Emily, my fiancée, with dinner reservations at her favorite Italian place. We've been engaged for 3 months, and things have been, well, at least I thought they'd been perfect. We were saving for the wedding, talking about kids, building a life together. So imagine my confusion when I opened the apartment door and heard voices. At first, I thought nothing of it. Emily often had friends over. But then I froze, because the second voice wasn't just anyone. It was Mark. Mark, my best friend since high school. The guy who stood by me when my dad died. The one I called a brother. Mark, who was supposed to be my best man. I remember standing in the hallway, holding my breath, listening. And that's when I heard it. Emily's laugh, followed by a sound that made my stomach twist into knots. A kiss. For a moment, I couldn't move. My brain refused to process what was happening. I wanted to believe I was hearing it wrong, that maybe it was a friendly peck, maybe I was overreacting. But then Emily's voice cut through the air, playful and teasing. What if he comes home early? And Mark replied, low and smug, don't worry, he trusts us too much. That was it, the knife to the chest. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. I wanted to storm in, scream, break something. But instead, something in me went cold, deadly cold. Because in that moment, I knew one thing. Exploding in anger would make me look weak. They would twist it. They'd make excuses. Maybe even laugh about how I overreacted. No, if they wanted to play games behind my back, I was going to show them that they had chosen the wrong person to betray. That night, I closed the door silently and walked away. They never even knew I'd been there. And that's when I began planning my revenge. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every laugh, every whisper I had overheard. It's strange, isn't it? How a single moment can shatter years of trust. 1 second, I thought I was building a future with Emily and Mark by my side. The next, I realized they were both perfectly fine burning it all to the ground, as long as I never found out. But I had found out, and the more I thought about it, the clearer my decision became. I wasn't going to confront them right away. No shouting match. No begging for answers. I wanted something else. I wanted proof. I wanted control. Because here's the truth. When people betray you, they expect you to lose it. To scream, to cry, to spiral. They count on your emotions blinding you. And that's exactly why I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead, I was going to do the opposite. I was going to smile, act normal, and let them dig their own graves while I prepared the final blow. The next morning, I kissed Emily on the cheek as if nothing had happened. She looked at me with those same soft eyes and asked if I'd slept well. I forced a grin. Like a baby. Inside, though, I was already calculating. Step 1 was obvious. I needed evidence. Real evidence. Something undeniable. So that when the time came, I wouldn't just accuse them. I'd show them. That weekend, I bought a small hidden camera online. Nothing fancy, but good enough to capture audio and video. I told Emily I was going on a quick work trip. In reality, I spent the time setting everything up in the apartment. One camera in the living room, another in the bedroom. I even hid a tiny recorder under the couch cushions. Paranoid? Maybe, But when you've already caught your fiancé kissing your best friend, paranoia becomes survival. The hardest part was pretending. Pretending I didn't notice when Emily smiled at her phone a little too long. Pretending I didn't see Mark's name flash across her screen late at night. Pretending I was still the clueless, trusting fiancé she thought I was. But I'll admit, it was almost thrilling. Every time I watched her lie to my face, every time she told me she was meeting her friend, when I knew exactly who she was meeting, it fueled me. And then came the night the camera caught what I had been waiting for. I was out with co-workers, but in reality, I was parked 2 streets away with my laptop, watching the live feed. Mark showed up at the door, grinning like he owned the place. Emily let him in without hesitation. They kissed. They laughed. They sat on the couch I had bought in the home I had paid for, talking about how stupid I was. He has no clue, Mark said, smirking. Emily giggled, curling up against him. He trusts me too much. Sometimes I feel bad, but then I remember how boring he is compared to you. I clenched my fist so hard my knuckles turned white. Every word was like acid, but at the same time, I smiled, because I finally had it. The proof. And I wasn't going to waste it. See, most people would have confronted them right then and there, bursted in, exposed them on the spot. But that wasn't enough for me. No, I wanted them to feel safe, to think they were getting away with it, to let the lie grow bigger, so that when it finally collapsed, it crushed them completely. So I waited. Days turned into weeks. And during that time, I played the perfect role. The loving fiancé, the loyal best friend. I even started discussing wedding plans with both of them, just to watch them squirm behind their fake smiles. But here's the thing about liars. The more they think they're untouchable, the sloppier they get. And Emily and Mark, they were no different. Soon, they weren't just sneaking around behind my back. They were careless. They left messages, emails, even receipts. And every time I collected it all, a folder on my laptop labeled insurance. Inside it, video recordings, audio clips, screenshots, bank statements. Enough evidence to destroy them both socially, financially, and emotionally. But gathering evidence wasn't the only step. Oh no, I wanted my revenge to sting in ways they couldn't ignore. So I started planting seeds. I casually mentioned to Emily how I was updating my will just in case. I let Mark overhear a fake phone call about a big bonus at work. I even hinted that I was thinking of buying a new house for us after the wedding. Why? Because I wanted them greedy. I wanted them to see me not just as a man they were betraying, but as a man they could profit from by betraying. And let me tell you, it worked. Soon, their whispers weren't just about sneaking around. They were about timelines, about money, about what would happen to my assets once I was out of the picture. They weren't just cheaters anymore. They were plotting, and I was recording every single word. By now, I had more than enough evidence to ruin them both. Videos, recordings, screenshots, proof so airtight that no amount of lying could save them. But here's the thing, just exposing them wasn't enough for me. Not anymore. I didn't want this to end with a shouting match, or with me walking away quietly while they laughed behind my back. I wanted them to feel the same humiliation, the same gut punch I had felt that night I heard them together. So I waited, patiently, like a hunter, and the more I waited, the more careless they became. One evening, Emily came home late, reeking of Mark's cologne. She tried to mask it with some cheap perfume, but I could smell it instantly. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said she was just tired from shopping with friends. I smiled back. Of course, babe. Want me to order some takeout? She nodded, relieved. Little did she know, I already had her entire evening recorded. It became a game to me, watching them lie, watching them build this fragile little world of secrecy and lust, thinking they were clever, while I already had the matches in my hand, ready to set it all on fire. Then one night, something happened that almost made me break character. I overheard them talking in the kitchen when they thought I wasn't home. Mark's voice was low, serious. You know, if we just push this wedding along, half of his money will be ours anyway. He's loaded. He won't see it coming. Emily laughed, soft, greedy. You're right. He's been saving for years. Retirement, investments, everything. And once I'm married to him, what's his mine? That was it. The betrayal was no longer just emotional. It was financial, calculated. They weren't just sneaking kisses. They were planning to bleed me dry. And at that moment, my cold fury turned into something sharper. Not only would I expose them, I would strip away every illusion they had built. So I began laying out the trap. Step 1, I set a date. A fake one. I told Emily I had booked a venue for us to check out. Something about seeing her face light up when she thought her plan was working made it almost satisfying. Step 2, I called Mark and asked him to meet me for drinks. I acted casual like a brother. We talked about sports, about old times, and then, like it was nothing, I mentioned that I was about to inherit some money from a distant relative. His eyes lit up. He tried to hide it, but I saw it. Greed. Plain as day. Step 3. I quietly reached out to a lawyer. Someone who could draft a few documents for me, just in case. The day of the venue tour arrived. I told Emily I wanted Mark to join us, since he was going to be my best man anyway. She hesitated at first, but I pressed, and eventually she agreed. What she didn't know was that I had invited a few other people as well. Close friends, family, people who loved me, people who would never believe rumors unless they saw the truth with their own eyes. It was perfect. The plan was simple. I would lure Emily and Mark into a situation where their lives would unravel publicly, and when it did, I'd have every angle covered. The cameras, the witnesses, the lawyer's documents, everything. But before the big reveal, something happened that almost pushed me over the edge. 2 days before the venue tour, I came home early again. And this time, I walked in on them. Not kissing, not whispering, but sitting together at the kitchen table, going through my financial statements. Emily had pulled them out of my desk. They were spread out across the table, highlighted, circled, annotated. They didn't even hear me at first. They were too busy plotting. Once we're married, this account is basically ours, Emily whispered. Mark smirked. He's so blind. By the time he figures anything out, we'll already be set. I stepped back silently, my heart pounding. For a split second, I wanted to slam the papers down, scream in their faces, and end it right there. But no, that would have been too easy for them. Instead, I walked quietly back out, closed the door behind me, and smiled. Because now I wasn't just exposing an affair. I was exposing conspiracy. And that, my friends, is where the trap truly began to close. The morning of the so-called venue tour, I woke up with a calmness I hadn't felt in months. Emily was rushing around, trying on dresses, redoing her hair, asking if her makeup looked right. She thought this was the beginning of her happily ever after. And Mark? He texted me. Can't wait, brother. Proud of you. The audacity almost made me laugh out loud. I glanced at my laptop one last time, checking the folder I had built over weeks. Videos, recordings, screenshots. Everything neatly organized, time-stamped, undeniable. Today wasn't just going to be a reveal. It was going to be an execution. We arrived at the venue, a cozy banquet hall I had rented for the evening. What Emily and Mark didn't know was that I hadn't booked it for us to tour. I had booked it for a private dinner with witnesses. When Emily walked in, her eyes lit up. She grabbed my arm. Oh my God, Daniel, this place is beautiful. I forced a smile. I'm glad you like it. And then she froze. Because sitting at the tables, waiting, were my parents, my sister, a couple of close friends, people she never expected to see there. Her hand tightened on mine. Wait, what is this? She whispered. Mark looked around nervously. He tried to laugh it off. Wow, didn't know this was a party. You could have given us a heads up, man. I just smiled. Don't worry, you'll understand soon. We all sat down. Emily fidgeted with her dress. Mark kept checking his phone. My parents looked confused, but supportive. I raised my glass. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know this is what you were expecting. But I needed the people closest to me here. Because what I'm about to show you, you need to see with your own eyes. Emily's face paled. Daniel, what are you talking about? I pulled out my laptop, connected it to projector, and hit play. The room fell silent. On the screen, a grainy video flickered to life. My living room. Emily and Mark, sitting on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, and then their voices. Emily, what if he comes home early? Mark, don't worry. He trusts us too much. Gasps echoed around the room. My mother covered her mouth. My father clenched his fists. My sister muttered, "Oh my God!" Emily shot to her feet. "Daniel, this is taken out of context." "It's not." I clicked again. A new clip appeared. This time, the kitchen table. Financial documents spread out. Emily pointing at numbers. "Emily, once we're married, this account is basically ours. Mark, he's so blind. By the time he figures it out, we'll already be set." The color drained from their faces. There was no escape. Emily stammered, tears welling in her eyes. It's not what it looks like. I cut her off. Calm, cold, stop. Don't insult my intelligence. Don't insult theirs. I looked around at my family, my friends, each one watching in shock, anger, disgust. This is the woman I was supposed to marry. And this... I pointed at Mark, who sat frozen, his face beet red. This is a man I trusted as my brother. Together, they thought they could lie to me, use me, steal from me. Mark slammed his fist on the table. "You don't understand." I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. "No, Mark, for once, you don't understand. I have every recording, every screenshot, every message. You didn't just betray me. You built conspiracy. And tonight, in front of everyone I love, I'm ending it." Emily broke down, sobbing, grabbing my arm. "Please, Daniel, I made a mistake. It was stupid. I love you, not him." I pulled my arm away. "You don't love me. You love what I could give you. The money, the stability, the blind trust. But guess what? That's over." I stood tall, looking at everyone in the room. "I called you here tonight because I didn't want this to be just my word against theirs. I wanted you to see the truth. And now you have." Silence hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Mark muttered something under his breath. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. I closed the laptop, slid it into my bag, and turned to Emily one last time. "The wedding's off. The engagement's over. You're out of my life. Effective immediately." Then I looked at Mark. "And you? Don't ever call me your brother again." With that, I stood, walked out the hall, and didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Emily crying, Mark swearing, my family consoling one another. But none of it mattered anymore, because for the first time in months, I felt free. Free of the lies, free of the betrayal, free to finally start over. When I walked out of that banquet hall, it felt like stepping out of a storm. For weeks, I had been living in silence, carrying the weight of betrayal, pretending to be someone I wasn't. But now, the mask was off. The truth was out. I half expected Emily to come chasing after me, begging, screaming, creating a scene, but she didn't. Maybe she was too stunned. Maybe she realized there was no fixing what she'd done. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Calls, texts, some from Emily, some from Mark. I didn't answer a single one. I didn't need to, because the beautiful part of exposing liars is that once the curtain is pulled back, the show is over. There's no rewinding it, no pretending it didn't happen. In the following days, the fallout was brutal. Emily's family reached out to me, horrified. They had believed she was building a future with me. Now, they couldn't even look at her the same way. Word spread fast. Friends, co-workers, extended relatives. Everyone saw the recordings. Everyone knew the truth. As for Mark, he tried to do damage control. He called mutual friends, spinning lies about how things weren't what they looked like, how Daniel twisted it. But the evidence was airtight. Nobody believed him. One by one, people cut him off. The man who once had a wide circle of friends suddenly found himself alone. And Emily, she lost more than just me. She lost her reputation, her dignity. Every time she tried to explain, people asked the same simple question. If it wasn't true, why is there a video of you doing it? There was no answer. I learned later that she and Mark tried to stay together for a while, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of desperation. But liars don't trust each other. And once the thrill of sneaking around was gone, all that remained was bitterness. They fought, they blamed each other, and eventually they split. Meanwhile, my life slowly began to heal. It wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong, betrayal leaves scars. Some nights I lay awake, wondering how I hadn't seen it sooner, wondering if I was to blame for trusting too much. But over time, I realized something important. Trusting someone isn't weakness. Their betrayal wasn't a reflection of my flaws. It was a reflection of theirs. And once I accepted that, I stopped feeling like a victim. I started feeling like a survivor. I poured myself into work, into hobbies, into reconnecting with people who truly cared for me. My family stood by me stronger than ever. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, telling me they admired how I had handled it. Not with rage, but with intelligence and composure. And that became my new mantra. Revenge doesn't always mean destroying someone. Sometimes it just means revealing the truth and walking away stronger. Months later, something happened that brought all full circle. I was at a coffee shop, reading, when a woman sitting nearby struck up a conversation. Her name was Claire. She had kind eyes, a warm laugh, the kind of laugh that didn't mock or manipulate, but felt genuine. We talked for hours. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope again. Not because I was desperate to replace Emily. Not because I wanted to prove anything to Mark. But because, deep down, I knew I was finally ready to move on. Looking back now, I don't regret what happened. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it nearly broke me. But it also opened my eyes. It taught me the value of patience, the power of truth, the strength of walking away with dignity instead of sinking to their level. Emily and Mark thought they had outsmarted me. They thought they had taken everything. But in the end, I was the one who walked away with my head held high, surrounded by people who loved me, free from their poison. And that, my friends, is the sweetest revenge of all. So if you've ever been betrayed by a partner, a friend, someone you trusted, remember this. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. You don't need to destroy yourself trying to understand why. Sometimes the best revenge is silence. Sometimes it's patience. And sometimes it's simply letting the truth speak for itself. Because once the truth is out, it doesn't just set you free. It burns down the lies they try to build and leaves them standing in the ashes.